Welcome back to Liz and Sandro's Marketing Podcast. We are the podcast that helps your small business grow through advice and information on search engines, email marketing, social media, and more. Recently, Liz went to WordCamp US over in Nashville. Today, Liz is going to give us an overview and some takeaways of her time there.
Yes, I will admit, as soon as Sandro mentioned that the conference was in Nashville, I was like, I'm in, because I love Nashville. And I knew I wanted to take a treat yourself day early and then jump into the conference stuff, which I did. It was awesome. If you haven't been in Nashville, definitely check it out. And a little bit of background for some of our new listeners. Sandro and I went to WordCamp Kent here locally in Northeast Ohio back in June of 2018. And we had a great time. We met some great people, heard some great speakers, and I was like, it can only go up from there if that was a local event. And I'm thinking, okay, at the national level, this is probably going to be pretty good. And it was.
There were a lot more people, I presume, at the U.S. one?
Yes. I think, let's see, I was kind of trying to roughly count.
There were about 80 at WordCamp Kent.
Yeah. I think when at the very last State of the Word speech, I think he may have said there was about 2,000 people there. So, yeah, good turnout. Which is interesting because it's still only a fraction of the people that actually use or develop WordPress websites. The conference started on Friday. Thursday, they released 5.0. And I think some people were like, oh, crap, we were kind of like scrambling because we weren't expecting it. And Matt pointed out that the majority of WordPress users weren't in the room or here in Nashville. So that's why they pushed it out when they did. By the way, I'm referring to Matt Mullenweg, who is the co-founder of WordPress, who gives a state of the word address at the very end of WordCamp US. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. I think my biggest takeaway would be, and this is why I think you go to any conference, it's the networking, it's to meet people. I think this is not true of every conference, but with WordCamp specifically, Sandro bought a ticket where he could stream the different sessions live. So you don't have to go. You don't have to take the time and the added expense to physically be there. But I wanted to go and chat with people. I think there's just so much benefit in that. And yeah, I met some really great people. I think I told Sandro one of my favorite people that I met was actually an Uber driver. He was, which is so random. He's developing essentially a competitive app to Yelp, which I think is desperately needed because I can't stand Yelp. So I'm rooting for him. We connected on LinkedIn, but I did meet some other great people actually at the conference.
Do you remember the name of the app?
I don't. Okay, I'll have to go back and look. But yeah, I met some other agency owners. I met some people who were, very much in the development space, just a variety of people of all ages, kids, people in their 70s. I mean, it's a whole spectrum of people that attend the conference. So
conferences are usually hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars. How much was this conference?
My ticket was $40, which is awesome.
Every WordCamp seems to be $40.
Yes, which I just so appreciate that. I'm not going to mention names. There's a conference here locally that I'm like, oh, I would love to go. And then I look at the price of the ticket and I'm like, no, I just don't see the value. So at any rate, I wanted to share some of my takeaways. I will say, first off, that one of my favorite talks was a talk on security, which sounds so boring, but the speakers were really engaging and they took an approach to it that I wasn't expecting, got me thinking a little differently, so I really enjoyed it. I'm going to actually go back and rewatch that speech and make some notes and share some more detailed takeaways because we've been so focused on GDPR, and I think they took a bigger picture approach. And like I said, got me thinking differently about how security and data protection can fit in a company here in the US. So that was a great speech, and I'm going to talk more about that in a separate episode. The other speech that I really enjoyed was from the founders of Yoast. And if you are a WordPress user, you know that Yoast is a plugin. They have a free version. They have some paid versions. I did not realize that they were a husband and wife team, or that they were a Dutch company. And it was great to hear some background on the company. He started it in his attic. He had some pictures up on the screens, and he said, just outside of the photo is my, washer and dryer, stackable washer and dryer. So he literally started it, in his attic or basement or wherever. And it was kind of struggling, or not struggling, but, just kind of plodding along there for a while. And then I think it was his wife who finally said, all right, we gotta make this work. If we're going to put time and energy into this, let's make it work. And they are now a $10 million company. So that's pretty cool to see that they started out home base and now they're huge. They were super funny, super engaging. They were big advocates of WordPress. It's a collaborative community and giving back, and they were really calling for more of that to happen. I think they were actually arguing for a percentage of time. The number escapes me, but that was really interesting.
Percentage of time.
Yeah. Allocating, I don't think it was 20%, but maybe it was 10. Maybe it was 5. I should go back and look. But
allocating it to
giving back to the WordPress community.
Oh, got it.
So, yeah, whether that's developing something open source, whether that's participating in a local WordCamp, training people, whatever it is, that's a big part of their company. And, they have to be mindful of that too. They're a for-profit company, so they can't just be giving away tons and tons of time. So it's something that they juggle and struggle with. But
balance, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I love their YouTube channel. I've watched all their videos because they're really short, usually 90 seconds, and they give you some great facts.
Very actionable advice.
Yes. Yeah. Like they don't spend 30 seconds to intro, and there's no
right.
outro. And
they get right to it.
3-second intro, and they're right on it. Yes, awesome.
Yeah. The other thing that I appreciated from their talk from a business perspective was, so they have the free version of Yoast, which truthfully, that's all I have ever used is the free version. They were just talking about how when you look at where you actually make your money, the premium service is really where the bulk of the money comes from, and that's true. I think they said that's true of Magento, which is a separate website platform, but they did mention that. Magento makes most of their money off of their premium service, so making sure that is a really good product, that it works really well. Just a good reminder from a business sense, you need your B and C clients, but your A clients, that's probably where you're going to make the bulk of your revenue. So great talk from them. A couple other things, just notes that I jotted down that I thought were interesting. Business revenue goes up 20% if you improve site speed. And this was, I cannot remember what toggle it was from. And I wrote that down really quickly and I was like, really, is that true? But then I kind of stopped for a minute. I'm like, oh, it probably is. If someone comes to my website and can't fill out the contact form to get in touch with me, that could be a $5,000 or $10,000 project gone. If you are a restaurant with an online ordering platform and it's taking forever to load and you lose order after order after order, that can very quickly add up to 20%. So I thought that was interesting and a good argument to make sure you have a good hosting, which we have talked about. And just make sure everything loads quickly. Another talk I went to spoke about accelerated mobile pages. Their argument was responsive is not the future. AMP and PWA is where it's at. And I know, Sandro, you've explored this a little more than I have, and there are some downsides to AMP, right?
Correct. Yeah. AMP is a Google-specific coding. They're really pushing this. It is meant to speed up the internet. It's very fast. If you look at a news site on your phone from Google, if you Google The Bachelor, the new TV show, and you want to read the latest news on The Bachelor, well, you click on the news site. Generally, they're made now in AMP, and they're really fast to load, and they're really quick. They do have some ads, but they load also pretty quickly. But generally, the knock against it is so much of it is hosted by Google or hosted somewhere else. It's not your own website, so people can't really maneuver to, like, say, a different page.
Yeah, there's some downsides to that.
Yeah, there's definitely downsides. And PWA is Progressive Web Apps. It's kind of the new trendy thing. I'm not 100% certain what it is or how it works, but I know things seem to be moving that way.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway. I went to another talk about marketing, and he was sharing some insight about how they test campaigns. And it got me thinking about how I might want to switch up how we do some of our test campaigns. I like to do test campaigns with new clients just because it gives me a sense of how they might be as a client long term, how they work, do they pay on time, like things like that. So I'm actually a big fan of project work. Anywho, changing some of how we do test campaigns. He was arguing building 20 different landing pages and taking 3 weeks to test them because you never know, you just don't know how something is going to perform. And I feel like specifically with a lot of Facebook campaigns, we've been getting a good response, we've been getting clicks, and things do seem to be kind of falling flat at the landing page. And the way that my pricing structure is, that's kind of, we build a landing page, but my recommendations are always, this is an area, that's going to need more attention should you choose to continue doing this type of any kind of digital campaign. That's kind of where I leave it. But maybe I should build a little bit more testing of a landing page into our test campaign. It just got me thinking.
Yeah, people are usually used to A/B testing, but that speaker were advocating A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah, this is a whole another level, and it makes sense. I also attended a great session on leadership, jotted a few notes down about that. Leadership is the ability to recognize what's going on within me, and kind of responding accordingly, managing thoughts and actions to have a greater impact on your team. I thought this woman's speech about leadership was really good. So good mix. It was a good mix of technical talks, some of which I attended and were totally over my head. Others were more kind of keynote-ish and inspirational, which were great. And then some of them got into more marketing nitty-gritty stuff, like, building 20 landing pages and taking the time to test them. So it was a good variety of speaker. I was impressed with all of that.
And that Gutenberg was released, WordPress 5.0.
Yes.
Gutenberg was released one day before.
Correct.
The event. So there probably wasn't much talk because people were still trying it out or still working on it. I'm sure this year's WordCamps, there's going to be a lot of talk about Gutenberg.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's the big call to action for you as a listener. If you are a WordPress fanatic, I highly recommend finding a local WordCamp, attending it, meeting some other WordPress enthusiasts. If you don't have one nearby, start one. It's a great way to meet people, give back to the WordPress community. All good stuff. Next year, so 2019 and 2020 WordCamp US, they will both be in St. Louis. I think they go to a city for 2 years, and then they move another 2 years. It just probably makes planning a lot easier, which makes sense. So 2019 and 2020 WordCamp US will be in St.Louis, which is not that far from us.
In
and
November.
Southwest flies direct.
Oh.
So...
And in November of this.
This past one was like
December.
First week of December. I'm assuming it's around the same time frame, which actually was a really great time to travel. Airfares were still cheap, and it was before the craziness of the holidays, although I got home and it was the craziness of the holidays, so it is what it is. Yeah, it was good.
I just looked it up, November 1st through 3rd, 2019 in St. Louis.
November.
Here. So early November. Yeah, they moved it up a month. Yeah, and even if you're not familiar with WordPress but want to learn WordPress, I learned it all at WordCamp 2017, WordCamp Kent. They had a whole track for beginners. It was like 8 hours of learning the very, very basics of WordPress. So even if you're new to it, it's still worth checking out a WordCamp in your area.
Yeah, and I've at both the local WordCamp and the WordCamp US, everyone was super friendly, willing to share ideas. If you are a newbie, it's a great place to learn.
It's great for everyone.
Yeah. So those are my takeaways. And like I said, I'm gonna do a separate episode going into more detail about the security talk because I like that one the best.
Thanks so much, Liz, and thank you for joining us. You will find us where you find your favorite podcast. As always, if you like what you heard, we'd love a review on iTunes, since we just found out you can't do reviews on Google or Spotify. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll also leave our email address in the show notes. We'd love to hear any feedback you may have. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you next time.